Hello, I'm John McFarlane, Head of Creator Engagement here at Rare, and welcome to episode 3 of the official Sea of Thieves podcast. It feels like it's been ages because I suppose it kind of has been ages since the last one. There's a massive gap there. But we have been busy getting a pirate's life into your hands. And now that we're getting settled back down, we feel like we should get chatting about it. But who have we got chatting today? Well, let's get through them. So we have Christina McGrath, Head of Community, Mike Chapman, Creative Director, Joni, Executive Producer, John McMurtry, Head of Video, and George Orton, Senior Designer. Recently been lifted up into Senior Designer role, George.
Yeah, very exciting. Thanks. Like, I still can't believe I'm at Rare, let alone like got senior in front of my name about anything. So how I fooled you all, I don't know.
It's awesome. George has done such a good job working on A Pirate's Life and beforehand since he's come at Rare. So we thought we'd reward him with not only a promotion but a chance to be on the podcast. So
that's the big deal, isn't it?
This is what it's all been building towards. Yeah. Is this next 40 minutes?
No pressure. But congrats. And then just before we get started, just to let you know, if you are listening, then remember you can choose whatever podcast app you want. We're on most reputable podcast apps. And if you are just listening but you want to watch all these beautiful faces and these new faces with George and John on the podcast, then go and check us out on YouTube/Sea of Thieves. And remember, Christina will be slinging questions from the community to our guests here. So if you do have questions for the next podcast, please use the hashtag #SOCPodcast on any of our social channels. Anyway, let's get started. And how is everyone? I feel like, Joe, you've been giving us updates on Twitter on your current COVID situation. How are you feeling?
Like moderately improved, but yeah, if I have a coughing fit, I'll mute myself basically. But I don't think there's any buttons that can help my brain work better. So if I just start staring off into space halfway through a sentence, someone else can complete it for me if you want. But yeah, no, I'm like it's. Yeah, it's slow but steady improvements, I think. But I'm definitely still resting a lot. But I feel up to this. But yeah, it's. I feel lucky that my symptoms haven't been as bad as some that I've read about. I watched the long COVID documentary recently, and that was eye-opening. But yeah, slow and steady at the moment, I think.
Oh, good. It's good to have you on here. And then Mike, I'm just going from everyone's Twitter feeds here. You were away on holiday recently. Where'd you go?
I went to the Cotswolds. It's about as far as you can go without getting on a plane. Well, that's not true because it's only an hour and a half away from Rare. But spiritually, it's about as far as you can go with the current situation. No, it was lovely. It was really nice, especially after working on A Pirate's Life and the team. And I don't know, it's good that people are booking holiday now and taking time out. I mean, it's a very intense process making anything of that scale. So it was amazing to chill out last week. It's my 10th wedding anniversary, so just relaxing and. Yeah, have a lovely time with family.
Congrats. And Christina, what have you been up to?
Oh, I've put nothing on Twitter. I'm just watching the Olympics because it's the only time in like 4 or even 5 years where it's like, yeah, bit of fencing in the morning, then bit of running or whatever, clay pigeon shooting, BMXing. I love it. I'll just watch anything. I'm very excited for the sports climbing though. They just run up the wall like little spiders.
Have you been inspired to do anything, activity-wise yourself?
Oh, yeah, loads. Yeah. Started doing the long jump. I haven't.
Impressive.
Before you mentioned BMX riding there, that could have been a quote from the Pirate Lord. Like, wake up in the morning, bit of fencing, bit of treasure hunting.
And George, tell us a bit about what you've been up to.
Same, watching a lot of the Olympics this weekend for the first time in like many months. I managed to go home and see my family dog, so I'm still buzzing off that. Basically, it's been way too long. Took like hundreds of photos of this little puppy that I've missed to pieces. So yeah, feeling loved up at the moment about dog, but it's fine. Yeah.
Each to their own. And John,
yeah, I'm doing all right. Can't complain. I have not really been doing anything of note. Although I have just bought a new car.
Okay.
I bought a first electric car, an ID3. So there you go.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Also,
so
John,
I spent money. That's what I did.
I just want to say that everything you do is of note to me. I never do yourself a disservice. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. Well, let's get into actual questions about the game and stuff. I feel like obviously we've seen like a ton of, hopefully folks out there have seen a ton of like podcasts and stuff, especially Joe and Mike, you've both been on chatting about A Pirate's Life, but I feel like this is an opportunity to get a bit more behind the scenes than we've previously been talking. And everyone was surprised when it first came out, and which was the idea. But how hard was it? Like Joe, you can answer this. How hard was it to keep a secret?
Pretty difficult, I think. I think everyone kind of can, from inside the team, can appreciate that. But yeah, we especially as we've been very open previously, right, with kind of things that we're working on. We put stuff into insiders. We let people know early. We get testing. We get feedback on the majority of our stuff. And this, we really wanted it to be that sort of surprise and delight moment, right, where we would blow people away, not only with the reveal of the kind of collaboration, but also then the short amount of time leading up to the actual release straight after it. And so we had to change everything that we did, right? So we have our internal team reports that we send out across the team. We made sure that didn't have any of the kind of images of stuff that people were working on, which again was difficult because that's part of how we keep people informed and excited about what's going on across the team. We changed the build process of how stuff was kind of categorized and where it went, what went into the build that went out to insiders and what didn't. We codenamed everything. We had a much smaller amount of people across the entire Xbox organization that were part of it too. It was just, yeah, we just wanted to kind of reduce the chance, but really of things leaking. And the problem is when you've got working on something as exciting as this, as soon as you tell someone, the kind of natural thing is you want to tell someone else, right, about this. Like you're like, oh, I just want to share that. I want to tell someone this is a cool thing. So it was an interesting one, and it leads to one of the things that really frustrates me about the games kind of space and games industry is kind of leaking, right? Like it's something that when you're working on something that you really want to keep secret and you really want to surprise and delight people, and then leaks kind of come left, right, and centre across the board. We've seen loads of other titles kind of leak trailers, leak things and stuff, and as a team, that moment when that happens, right, is so frustrating and so kind of just disheartening to the whole team, because you want to get to that moment where your work is revealed in the way that you want it to be revealed, and you want to just blow people away, and to have it kind of come out as just a rumor or a kind of a leak or a half finished asset or something, like those things are so annoying. And so the amount of work we had to put into keeping it secret purely because of that kind of environment is super, I don't know, frustrating to me. But so I don't know other people's views on that, but it really is kind of a bugbear of mine. And I feel really bad when teams kind of get stuff leaked, like stories or trailers or anything else. So I don't really see what the benefit of it is. So.
Akin to the Grinch climbing down your chimney and opening your Christmas presents, or just stealing them, just wrecking them. Is that? Sorry to cut you off there, John, but I think for us as well, I think the thing, it's so tense for us when we're trying to keep it secret as well, especially on the development team, working on anything of this scale. And, you know, we've done kind of big releases before on Sea of Thieves, but having the context around why we're doing it and the way we're doing it is so critical to understanding it. And I think the reason why it's so important to us, and I'm sure, George, you've got similar thoughts as well, is you truly do just want to blow people away. You want to give them something that they've never seen before and would never expect. And I think the last time we did that was probably the anniversary release, and we're doing these things called Tall Tales for the first time, and like just trying to completely change the kind of conception of what Sea of Thieves can be as an experience. And this was just such on a huge scale. Like we felt that pressure to maintain the code words and make sure we were keeping up to those standards to keep it secret, because it is like once one person knows, outside of that group of people, it would just spread like wildfire. And we just wanted to have that shock and awe moment when we announced it for the first time. So I don't know what your perspective is like on that, George, what it was like working on the Tales day to day.
Yeah, like I totally agree with what you both said. Like it's obviously you're aiming for this huge moment and you want your work to be revealed like in the most kind of complete way that it possibly can be. It's also like really important from like a team motivational point of view. Like obviously a release like A Pirate's Life takes so much work and effort and love from all the teams that are involved in it, and you're all gunning for that one date where you get to celebrate it together. You don't want that to leak because you don't want people to find out about it too soon and the message to be wrong, but like you also don't want it to leak because the morale of the team is so high when you're working on something like that and you're getting so much done, and like every day the build gets better, or you see something new that like blows you away or makes you laugh or smile in a way that you've not seen before. But you've always got this nagging thought in the back of your head like that if this leaks, it's going to be a real bummer and there's going to be a load of people who are like deflated by it. So I mean, super proud of the team for A, shipping A Pirate's Life, and B, shipping it in the exact way we want it.
I think that's the thing that kind of blew me maybe because that project was so exciting, you know? It's like, it's so hard to keep a thing like that inside. You want to just go like, by the way, and then tell them everything. Like, so yeah, it's kind of incredible that we actually pulled it off. Like,
Yeah,
like,
it is.
the amount of people that touch the project along the way as well. Like, everyone managed to keep it quiet.
I think as well for the majority of players out there as well, they want that. They don't want a half-assed trailer coming out or like a Word document, a Notepad document with all the tales.
It was an exciting Word document though. It was a very exciting Word document.
But they don't want any of that. So I don't think it really works for anyone other than the person that's really leaking it, which is the most frustrating part.
Yeah, and they win internet points, which are like you can't cash them in anywhere, I don't think. But I think that's literally all you get is internet points. But no, and even just the kind of the approach that we had of the trailer itself and how that was carefully crafted to kind of tease you into the reveal in like 40 seconds or something, right? And for different people of different levels of knowledge of Disney or Pirates of the Caribbean, or like they'll kind of guess it at different times, or they'll only get it when Jack Sparrow's revealed and stuff. And so even just the crafting of the trailer, but then also the stuff that we wanted to reveal, like more and more detail of like during the kind of 10 days, the 10 days of awesome, as we styled it internally to kind of to that launch moment. Like the whole way we wanted to kind of build up to that release was all completely kind of contingent on it being a secret, right? And so if something had kind of leaked, depending on what it was, like we would have had to have maybe change or just to kind of, throw those plans out the window or something. And so, yeah, it was a high risk kind of approach in one way that because of what we, it was all kind of contingent on it being a secret, but also I think we had pretty high confidence that the team, like, it wasn't going to leak this, right? They understood it, why we were doing it and everything. But it's as you bring more and more people in to kind of go do, localized trailers or kind of go do different plans across kind of different parts of the org or even outside of that, external teams and things. It's just the more people that know, the more chance that kind of one person who shouldn't know finds out, and then they decide to go tell someone. And but we did it, and it paid off, I think, brilliantly. So
it was a great moment.
I think like George, you're absolutely spot on with the point about team morale. I think when even like kind of looping it back to the trailer, even before we started planning out what the trailer would be, you start to fantasize and daydream about what that reveal would be like, because it's all about having an impact on people. And I think when we're like crafting moments in the tales, like as designers on the design team, all we're ever thinking is, what are people going to think when they get to this moment? Is it going to have the impact? Are they going to feel emotions where we want them to feel the right emotions? Are they going to experience all these little details that we're putting into there? And I think coming out the gates with something, I mean, ambitious, not just in the sense of the mechanics and the kind of scope of the content, but ambitious in terms of how do you bring these two worlds together in a way that it's not just doing it for the sake of being fans of Disney or the fact that they're two pirate properties that broadly align. How do you do it in a way that celebrates our world, that you come out of at the end, and the Sea of Thieves is a richer place because of it? And that's the ambitious side of it. That's the difficult thing. And that goes to the point of, having it announced with the right context, so people understand how authentic we're trying to be, and we're handling it with care, and we're telling this story because we truly believe in the story that we're telling and how it brings something fresh to the Sea of Thieves world. But George talking about morale is absolutely spot on. And I think there's so many, like the talented team that we have. I mean, it was kind of like an unspoken thing, but people did say it in terms of, for many of us, it sounds corny, but it is like the chance of a lifetime. A lot of people have grown up with Disney properties and Disney worlds and Disney characters, and it's impossible not to work on a pirate game like Sea of Thieves and not talk about Pirates of the Caribbean or have fans of that kind of thing, and especially the Disney side of it on the team. So no matter which discipline you're working in, it was a huge monumental thing for so many of us. And I think the reason why the end result is because so many of our team took it to heart in terms of what we were trying to build and why it was special. And I can't tell you how much of a relief the announce and then the past month has been. That's the ultimate reward. Because like the whole team is just thinking about, is this going to land the way we want it to land? And then having it released and not have that pressure about it leaking, and just seeing people play through the tales and those smaller moments that you think would touch very few people, like it's having that impact that you want. That is, like, how many times have you watched playthroughs of Tale 3, George?
I can't stop. I mean, in the first week, I used to skip the first 5 minutes when they were all leaving their ships at the start of the swamp and rowing through the whole thing. But now we've fixed that. I can go back and watch the whole thing. But no, like, you're absolutely right. Like, seeing it all come together is the reward for the team. And I don't understand a mentality that would want to take that away from the teams that build it, or anything like that. I'm super proud that we made it. And it's really nice to be able to like Pirates of the Caribbean gifs on Twitter again without fear of like.
It's
yeah. I remember that first chat.
What was the reveal? Oh, sorry, mine.
I would say just remember that first chat that me and George had. I think it was 24 hours after release, where we'd watch those videos and people were leaving the ship at the start of Tale 3 and they were using it in a way we didn't intend to. And like, again, I know, tried to remind you, don't let that kind of cloud your perception of how amazing it is. And the whole secrecy point of it is a break from our usual process, right? In terms of going to our insider community, getting them to test these features early. But it is like, we're all only human. We know that if there's a risk that it is going to leak, even with insiders, because it's such a huge monumental thing, and it's something you want to shout from the rooftops, like we've wanted to shout from the rooftops. So I think that's been particularly challenging. I'm sure everyone's got a perspective on that in terms of trying to keep it secret, but trying to preempt how new players or existing players are going to experience that content, and how do we get the test coverage on it and all. I mean, that has been particularly challenging. But again, the delight of announcing this thing out of nowhere and it having that, hopefully, that massive impact on people and it creating those memories with people, I think it's all been worthwhile. But definitely a shout out to our insiders in terms of it's not our usual process. We know we've broken with our usual process, and we did weigh that up. I think when we started talking about that, Joe, but that was going back. Before we started building the tales was like, how do we build the tales? How do we build this content? How do we build the experience in a way that we get the quality that we want, but we maintain the shroud of secrecy? So it's been a challenging year.
It was great as well to see the way you guys managed it in terms of putting what you could into insiders as well, stuff like sirens, etc. Without managing to spoil anything.
Yeah, and the teasers, the kind of teasers as well on social and kind of in the game and stuff with all of the runes and stuff was really cool, right? Because it was leading up to this, but also kind of a bit of a misdirection as well, because it was around the stuff, like you say, that was going into insiders and things. I loved that. I loved seeing that play out, because like when you look back over it, you can see it was building up to kind of a big part of this, but also kind of leading people a little bit away from it at the same time, right?
That stuff is. That stuff is a joy. I know, Christina, you've obviously worked on that quite a lot, on the plan we all put together. But Duke's story and teasing things with Duke and the Silver Blade. Why are they talking about the Silver Blade? And kind of knowing they're never going to guess how the Silver Blade is going to feature, because it's going to be hanging inside a cave somewhere. It's like just completely audacious plans. Yeah. But
you had a rune in the last podcast, didn't you, on your watch or something? Wasn't it?
I did. Yeah. So if it looked like I was just really bored and checking the time really obviously, I wasn't. I was loving it. But just to touch on something you said earlier, John, and then also Mike, in terms of making a huge impact, we fundamentally, and I'm going to talk about it from kind of a numbers perspective, we monitor how people speak about the game and how, at what volumes. And really, when we announced at E3, we did, I'm looking at a chart right now. We were right up there with Halo Infinite. We were right up there with Forza Horizon 5 in terms of the amount of conversation we generated. And, on paper, we knew we had something special. But actually, for someone who might not know as much about Sea of Thieves, they're like, this is DLC for a 3-and-a-bit-year-old game. To be, up there and really singing from the rooftops about the development and the evolution of the IP and joining forces with the other massive pirate IP in the world, it was a really special moment. I think we did tough calls, made all the right calls, because you look at how it exploded, certainly from a social and community perspective. People have never spoken to us as much. It's been very stressful, but also in wonderful ways, because we surprised them. And as you said, John, we were kind of slipping them different. If it was a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, we probably gave them about 6 pieces and went, there's a bigger picture here. And to be able to go fill that in, especially with the cinematic trailer, which was absolutely phenomenal, was just the icing on the cake. And you could see everyone buzz just from the second it dropped. And, like I say, we've got big old graphs that show a massive spike where people are, oh my God. And even the Duke stuff as well, Mike, we've seen, I think it's Logan who's reacted to it, because he was like, I called it. And because we've been teeing this up since February, March with these sneaking runes in. It was just a payoff on so many different layers, levels, type pockets of the community. It was a very, very special moment.
Yeah.
Talking of the moment, that'd be a good thing to jump into, you, John. Like, for the trailer, overall, what does it take to pull a trailer like that together? When does it start? Like, when do you start thinking about it? Like, I know I remember being in the early conversations with you and Mike, but when does that start, and what's the evolution of that?
I mean, for something like that, you do start it very early on. Like, I think our first sort of chat, Mike, was...
We probably started talking about it and again, that whole point of this was going to be the trailer. It had the opportunity to be the best trailer we've ever done. And I think we took that to heart. I know we spoke about it in August last year, but it was always in the context of, we've got to start early. This is the one. We've got to start early. We don't want to rush it. We've got to do this right. Yeah. And I think the first meeting we had was face to face, and that's the one that you were in, John. That was in the studio. I think it was September.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess the thing is, the second I heard about this is what we were planning to do, when you told me about it, Mike, it's like, you go all right, okay, well, we're going to have to make a kick-ass trailer for this, because there's no other thing you can do other than that. It needs the biggest support we can possibly give it, because it's huge. But yeah, trailers like that are interesting. So we work with our partners at Real Time to do these sort of bigger cinematic trailers. And it goes through a lot of revisions, a lot of iterations, trying to nail down structure and stuff like that. But at its core, one of the things that I really wanted to do was, I said, this needs to feel like a Pirates of the Caribbean trailer. I want you to come out of this feeling as hyped for this as you would if it was the next Pirates movie. And so that was the template, that was the style of what we were going for. And then, you get a lot of sort of work on, like you mentioned, Mike, that moment of the reveal, teasing it out, and, sorry, it was you, Joe, in the first 40 seconds, figuring out how to do that, because it's you can't spend forever. You don't have an unlimited amount of time, certainly not when you're in E3 as well. But yeah, how to do that effectively while still, and then, like you say, dropping those little moments along the way. It's there's plenty of moments before we reveal Jack Sparrow that you can go wait a second, this is Pirates of the Caribbean. You've just got to be a bigger fan, I guess. And yeah, it's tricky, but Real Time make it very easy as well, because they're great. And there's a lot of work that goes in by a lot of people, whether that's people in our team, in the video team, or whether it's in audio, or it's the whole studio. It's art, animation, everything. Everyone's involved. Yeah. But it's exciting. That's the thing. Doing this is not a chore, because you're working on, say, something that is a Pirates of the Caribbean trailer.
I remember the first time, so in those early stages when you were working on kind of getting together the idea for the trailer itself, and I kept asking, like, when are you going to take us through this? I need to know roughly what the story is. I need to know what it's going to cost, like all of the boring stuff. But it kept getting pushed back, the kind of, because you kept having your meetings, kept having your discussions, and then when you did take us kind of through a sort of slightly wider group, like myself and Simon and stuff, you had the kind of storyboard video, right?
Yeah,
that was the first time I kind of saw this, where you'd put John McMurtry's amazing voiceover acting impressions of Jack Sparrow, and
which fooled some people. Like,
someone did ask if that's the real voice actors. It's like, no.
It's like, yes, and I'll fill out this check to.
But I remember even just watching it at that stage, right, which was literally just kind of like sketched images, but with your placeholder voice and some music in the kind of background, again, placeholder music. But just seeing it at that stage, it was probably the trailer that's probably had the least revisions for me in terms of like from that initial vision, right? It was like, hey, this is really good, right? Like this is it.
If you look at that storyboard version, it's structure wise, especially it's pretty bang on to what eventually went out.
You've got a lot of content to play with there. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
Like,
that was the thing, that meeting we had at Rare, that first meeting, that was just Post-its on the wall in terms of, I mean, there's some things that I think were in our heads, John, at least immovable, in terms of we had to have the play on the castle shot at the start. I think that was something that was in the different image, but an image that was in the original pitch. That was a fantastic way to get everybody on board with the magnitude of what we were doing. So being playful with it and being playful with the reveal and introducing Jack in the right way had to be the gag from the attraction with the bone and they did in the movie. So I think there's some things that were dead certs for us, but I think we had scenes based on content. Remember us putting the Post-it boards up on the wall, and I think you're right in the sense that we were giddy doing it. And I think a lot of the iteration was really like, what do you pick? Because there was just too much. And I think the risk was the trailer was going to be too big. Because we just wanted to show too much stuff off. We had so much to play with.
Yeah, I mean, it's already like, I guess a relatively long trailer in the sense it's like, I think it's 2 minutes 50 or something like that. So yeah, you're right, squeezing everything that we would have wanted in, like, and you sometimes think, along the way you're going like, oh, I wish I could make more of a moment or whatever that, and so you're trying to figure out how to keep the impact of that moment, but just go, right, get it shorter so you can put as much in as you possibly can. Because that was the other thing, that there's no point in everyone in the studio creating all of this amazing stuff and I just go tease and don't show you a black screen with some text or whatever. It's like, no, you need to show it off. So that's why there's, it's a huge amount of variety in locations, in terms of the actions that you're seeing. We show the weapons, the new weapons like the trident and stuff like that. Everything's in there. We don't hold back too much, to be honest. We tried to put in as much in as we possibly could.
when you're talking about that as well, and talking about the variety of stuff that's in there, what are some of the challenges then that you come up against from a logistical standpoint?
So obviously things change, like as they are, like as they will do, like, because you're starting this literally almost a year before it's out. And so you're just trying to keep up with the small changes that might happen along the way. But aside from that, it's like, you're waiting on things like, environments being ready. Exactly. So your initial versions of the trailer might be, it's all in white box or whatever, or it's all, for a long time, it's just, block out animations of a character kind of stood in place with the VO playing. So you have to be able to use your imagination quite a bit when you're looking at these work in progress versions of the trailer. And it really comes together, not last minute, but it does, you see all the push, all the polish in that last maybe couple of months. And that can worry some people, but we've done enough trailers to know that that's just the way that it is. Like,
that's the main angst on the team, isn't it? Is the work and all the effort going to be shown off in the best light? And there's moments where the trailer will just jump as environments get finished, but in terms of that final level of polish, you're well into the last month before all that comes together. And more than anyone, John, you've gone through so many processes like this with trailers that you know it's all going to work out at the end, but the kind of angst from the team is, oh, is that framing right? Oh, that lighting's not final. But it just, you know, it's all going to click. In that last couple of weeks, it all clicks, and then it just feels like this massive level up where it's the final music, it's the final audio mix, it's the final VO, everything's trimmed and timed beautifully, and the visuals are there, and then it's just, you can enjoy it. And I think, I was going to say quickly as well, just going back to what it's like on the team, a lot of the big trailers that we've done have been invaluable on the team, especially in those final couple of months where everyone's working so hard to finish it off. It's a huge confidence boost because not everyone gets to see all these various versions of the trailers. They just see something more finished. So that moment of showing off the trailer to the team in the all hands, like, it is, everyone already massively believes in what we're trying to do with the Pirates Life, but to see it in cinematic form and know this is what players are going to see in a couple of weeks, it definitely spurs you on in those last moments. It's mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah, it was kind of mid-May, wasn't it? We showed the work in progress one to the whole team, I think. I remember. That was an awesome all hands, right? Because we had that. I think we had the gameplay trailer, the work in progress gameplay trailer as well. And talking through what that plan for those 10 days was and everything. Like, that was super cool. Like, that was a great all hands.
There used to be this moment on, George will remember this because George was in these meetings towards the end of Shores of Gold, which was another big trailer that we did with partners at Real Time, and that was it. There was 9 tails. We were doing tall tails for the first time. George, how many tails did you build, George?
4 of them in the end.
Yeah, it's quite a lot. And again, I've forgotten, it's been that long. But that was one of those days where you go, well, yeah, we've got a lot of work to do this week. It's like, let's deploy the latest trailer. And we'd all go into the room together and we'd turn the lights down and we'd all just go, this is what it'll feel like, because you get so close to things, and stepping back and appreciating how players will perceive it. The trailer is the great way to force what it's going to feel like, and that was awesome. And the trailer would get better each week. And everyone leaves the room punching the air. And let's do this. That's awesome.
And it's funny as well, isn't it? Being part of the kind of E3 process, you always get a deadline that's a bit sooner than what you want to deliver it for, because you have to, they'll get like 20 odd trailers from all these different teams. They have to get them, they have to quality check them, they have to make sure they're good for all of the different channels and stuff. But I don't think we've ever delivered on the date that has been requested of. We've always been like, can we get an extra 5 or 6 days? And I think because we always do end up delivering it to the right spec and the right quality, and there's never any issues, that kind of we tend to get that extra time, like almost like as a matter of course now. But I think we were supposed to deliver on like the 28th, and we delivered on like the 6th or something, right? Something like that.
I'd be very surprised if we ever deliver one exactly when they want it.
Yeah,
I'm really that kind to them.
But it's always high quality, and it always meets all the requirements.
So talking about, like, going back to George then and building those tall tales, and you'd said you'd done like 4 from the previous, but there was quite a lot of new gameplay and tech stuff that went into these tall tales. Like, what were some of the challenges from like a technical perspective, as well as like gameplay design, and how those merged, George?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of new stuff in there. There's a ton of old stuff that we've since learned a much better way of using, so it feels brand new, but behind the scenes it's quite old. I guess the big obvious technical challenge that we had to embrace pretty early on was kind of moving players to these new worlds, whether it be the like under the sea areas or the Sea of the Damned, and kind of how we cope with that on a technical level. So the one thing that the team went after really early was the server migration that goes on when you're moving through the tunnels of the Damned to the Sea of the Damned. Luckily, that was one of the things we managed to put a little fake version of in Insiders, and I'll speak for Stephen Frost here, who was kind of the lead engineer on that stuff. But I've never seen him so nervous in the lead up to shipping a feature.
It takes a lot to get him nervous, though, right?
It takes a lot to get Steve nervous, and like, this is a huge feature, and he was very aware that the first tall tale of a pirate's life would be locked behind this server migration, and if that falls over, and obviously, like, historically with game dev, and I know Sea of Thieves, there's the whiteboard shot that Joe was a beautiful part of. Historically, like, with multiplayer games, getting servers allocated for the numbers of players that you have coming in can be tricky in the early moments of any release. And obviously we were expecting Pirate's Life to be a huge release with loads of new players and returning players. And Steve and the team were very aware that the first tale was locked behind everyone requesting essentially a new server. So we knew we had to kind of nail that flow. So getting it to insiders was invaluable there. Like, I know we've been over the insiders stuff before. It's a shame we couldn't test more because their input is incredible and it's great to work with them. But we managed to get this one there. And then seeing Steve's face when he checked his spreadsheets that he'd set up to track the numbers coming through, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like if we get." I think the first test was if we get 80 or 85% of people to successfully do it in the first insiders, like that's a great stepping stone, and we can build off there. And the first insiders was something like 93%. I'm going to get these numbers wrong, so Steve will tweet out the real numbers, and everyone should go follow @Thief and Frost. But the first one was like low to mid 90s, and just his face was like beaming. And then from then we just knew that like. By the end of dev, it's up to like 99.99 something % of folk get through these tunnels. But that was a technical challenge that's way beyond the remit of a designer to understand. Like that was all on the engineers, but that was a big one, and like super proud of the way the team challenged themselves. We had some new engineers on the team who took to that challenge with Steve. Stuff. It was brilliant to see that be so successful.
It was really cool seeing insiders speculate as to what it was going to be for, right, as well. Like, that was a lot of fun. Right?
I will say that was very stressful, though, because obviously we've got the internal terminology, Tunnels of the Damned. I was like, if we call them that, people are going to go nuts. So I remember going through every post drafted being like, change it to portals, like just removing anything that might have alluded to what they would be used for. So it was like, this is just a boring old tech test. Don't mind us. You'd be helping us out with some admin here. But obviously they don't miss a beat, and they did, like you say, start speculating. Some weren't far off, some were. But it was definitely kind of an interesting communication challenge as well, because obviously, like I've said before, we've given them some pieces of the puzzle. This is quite a significant piece, certainly for Tales 1 and 3. But again, it was quite fun to see them speculate, because I think certainly there was an undercurrent of something big's happening with all the different things that we were pulling in. But I still think we surpassed their expectations of what we ended up delivering.
Yeah, and we did actually plan to get the ocean crawlers in there as well, but we missed getting them in there quite early. But the plan was to test all 3 of the AI threats as early as possible as well. But that was another thing of, Saurons are great, but where they come from, why are there phantoms on islands, where do they all come? It's like, that's a little bit uncomfortable sitting there going, oh God, you're going to know, just wait 1 month and you're going to know all about it. But I think when it comes to like Tunnels of the Damned and then I think it's important to kind of stress that, and it seems kind of counterintuitive to how you'd expect the design process to always work, but I actually think some of the best things we'll do and some of the best designs will come off the back of a technical limitation. And I think early on we knew that the concept of the Tunnels of the Damned, this kind of world between worlds where you're transitioning to this other world, we knew that would be a wait. We knew it was going to take X amount of time, 2 minutes and more to kind of swim to the bottom of the ocean, because we wanted that to be seamless. And again, that then unlocks all of that thinking around, well, this is not a bad thing. This is a brilliant thing. You've got the player's complete undivided attention, which is the greatest privilege you can have as a designer. And then very much similar to Walt Disney World itself, you turn the queuing experience, you turn that into a creative opportunity, and the Tunnels of the Damned making it an experience where you're traveling to the world of the dead and you're seeing all of these visions, and you're swimming down to the bottom of the ocean, you're hearing the singing of the Siren Queen. I actually think the technical limitations, huge investment for us, but I actually think it's led to some great moments on the Tales. And you often find that like working on a game like Sea of Thieves, that like how do you turn the negative into a positive? It's always a good way to bring something new.
So just touching on Disney, because you said Disney and stuff like that, how much research went into the game? Mike is probably a good one to start with this.
25 years, isn't it, Mike?
Well, yeah, I'm probably more, probably 38 now, so 36 years probably. what was true right from the start was the idea of working with Disney. Of course, it's incredible. So many of us are fans. Pirates of the Caribbean is a natural fit for Pirates of the Caribbean. Like thematically, nautical folklore, kraken, these monstrous foes brought to life. It's everything's this fantastical pirate world. It aligns there. But I think that's the kind of obvious way it fits. But I think that the reason why I think the story that we've told works, and I hope our players agree with us, is that the kind of morality of the Sea of Thieves world and morality of the Pirates of the Caribbean world really align. And I think the thing that we took to heart was, if this is we're going to add this to the game, and we're not planning to take it away. We want it to stay in the game. It has to feel truly at home in the game. So I think the mantle of responsibility was really on how do you do it in a way that feels complementary to our world, and it doesn't feel like it's this kind of foreign concept invading the world that we've poured, love into building out with the Pirate Lord and all these beloved characters that we've tried to flesh out and give them compelling backstories because it enhances our world. So it had to be something complementary. And I think the idea of giving characters from the Pirates of the Caribbean world this narrative device of Jack's treasure to cross into our world and telling this broader story of how is the pirate's life different in the Pirates of the Caribbean world and how is it different in the Sea of Thieves. I think that was the thing that unlocked the whole story. And then the things that you'd expect to be hard weren't as hard, because if, people are going to roll your eyes, everyone on this call is going to roll their eyes. They've heard me say it so many times, but it all goes back to that quote from Curse of the Black Pearl, when Jack talks about what freedom means to him, what a ship means, what a ship really is. It's more than just its hull and its keel and all of that. It's about the freedom to have your adventures. That's what a ship promises you. Sea of Thieves, fundamentally, the law we've already established was that the Sea of Thieves is special and pirates and adventurers want to be there is because the golden age of piracy can live forever, because no one ever really dies in the Sea of Thieves. So the idea that Jack and his crew would want to be in the Sea of Thieves because the thing they think is most important, the freedom of the pirate's life, he's on a pedestal in the Sea of Thieves. He could live forever. It struck that right balance between how the Sea of Thieves world relates to the world of Disney and Pirates of the Caribbean, because it makes the Sea of Thieves a fundamentally special place. And it reaffirms everything that our characters have said in all of the tall tales and everything around how we position the world. So I think that was the kind of what if scenario. What if Davy Jones discovered the Sea of Thieves world? How would that change the pirate's life? And what if Jack was in the middle of this conflict between the ferryman who represents life and death in the Sea of Thieves, and the version of that in Pirates of the Caribbean is Davy Jones? So that was the only kind of bit where, beyond just doing all the work, that was the only bit in terms of what's the right story to tell. And then a pirate's life, we could go back to the attraction, the deeper meaning of the attraction, and represent that more timeless quality in the game. So yeah, once we had that, I think kind of the beats of the story was really a fun process to plan out. So yeah, research wise, I'm kind of obsessed, as you can tell. So that wasn't too hard, but I think it was just, if we're going to do this, it's got to be the right story. It's got to be the right story for whether you're a fan of Sea of Thieves or not, whether you're a fan of Pirates of the Caribbean. It has to hang together, and if you scratch the surface, the meaning of the story is true to our world. That was the main thing.
George, you might have some insights into this as well, but I know, certainly having played through the tales with Andy and Shelley, and they were all pointing out things to us as we went through, that there's definitely some points in there where it was a blink and you miss it, or a don't stand at the right angle and you miss it sort of thing. How much research went into those little bits? Of you finding things out and going oh God, if we lined up all these stalactites like this, it's going to create this shape, and this is the original painting, and we're going to frame everything like that. What research went in there?
There was a load of research. I grew up on the films more than the attraction. So as soon as I realised we were doing this and we'd be going after Pirates of the Caribbean all up, it was read everything you can, save every single video on YouTube of a playthrough of the attraction, and then watch them all, and then get told off by Mike for watching the wrong park to make sure we got the correct bit of the correct attraction. But yeah, stuff like the lining up the rock formations and stuff is just such a cool moment, and that's part of what makes the attractions so special, is that you can sit on them once and enjoy them because they're kind of huge environments with massive characters that are just great to take part in. But every time you go through, you'll notice, oh, there's a cool little thing going on in this corner, or there's a cool little thing going on there. Like, and putting little moments like that in that the player would hopefully miss, or most players would miss on their first or second or third playthrough, but then see on a subsequent one, felt like the right way to embrace the same way the attractions were designed, by leaving little trails of Easter eggs. And some of them are directly from the attractions or the films, and some of them are where designers have lost their mind late at night when they're still working on stuff and just can't help but add in cheeky little moments. So,
and I think earlier when I was saying that, once we found the meaning of the story and the story it wanted to tell, that's where it unlocks what these tales are. And because it's basically, just to bluntly paraphrase it, what is the pirate's life as it's represented in the attraction in the movies, and what's the Sea of Thieves version that are why it's special? And that's where the Cursed Captain came from. It came from this. The message of Tale 1 is, in the Pirates of the Caribbean, as you're seeing in a memory in Our Sea of the Damned, dead men tell no tales. People love that. We should have put more of that in, by the way. Tell no tales. That is such a recognizable statement from the attraction in the movies. Dead men tell no tales. It's that fear of death, of losing your freedom. That is precisely what's not true in the Sea of Thieves. So that thought process was, the first half of Tale 1 will be reaffirming this idea that dead men tell no tales. But then in the second half, dead men do tell tales. And that's where the thinking was, we're going to have a talking skull that literally tells you his tales, because that can exist in the Sea of Thieves. And that's what makes the Sea of Thieves special. So it's just trying to find the right meaning. And each tale was designed to do something very, very different. It's kind of half references, and it's also half moving air lore forward with sirens and the Sunken Kingdom and all of that.
What I love as well is that it does feel so organically, like it works so well within the Sea of Thieves world, but there is such an attention to detail, like to proper detail as well, that to be authentic to both the film and the attraction, that it was like, I know that was super important to you, Mike, like, and it was quite granular as well, like some of it, like, I mean, even just we were both in the voiceover recording sessions, but things like the pigs and chickens and all that sort of stuff, like,
I mean, that's where both in Tale 1 and Tale 3, there's so much original sound effects, ambience, and VO from the original attraction going back to 1967, which is, it strikes the right atmosphere if you haven't been on the attraction, but if you have, it's just that nostalgic, powerful callback moment. But there's several times, I think what you're referring to there, John, we had a choice to go, do we do it properly, or is there an easy way to do it? And I think every time we've done this a lot with Sea of Thieves, every time we have this crossroads, we always end up doing it the harder way, because it's the right way. And I think we, like you say, we went back and we got a sound alike for the chickens, the singing pigs, the singing dog. So all of the animals that are singing in tune with Yo-Ho, A Pirate's Life, it's kind of a quintessential part of the magic of that attraction, where there's this sound, all the sound is synced together. And George knows this more than anyone in terms of how much effort it took to pull that together in the attraction, in the Tale 3 version of the attraction. But yeah, that was us late night, probably early morning hours, AM, listening to an amazing voice actor doing an impression of a chicken, doing an impression of a dog. It was amazing. It's still one of those like pinch me moments, as this is probably never going to happen again. It's absolutely amazing. But I think, to your point, John, it's that level of detail. It's like any great games out there, and hopefully like Sea of Thieves, when people love something, they really love something, and people put their heart and soul into it. If you're going to go near anything as beloved as the Pirates of the Caribbean movies and the attraction, you've got to do it properly.
Exactly.
You can't go half in. You've got to go all in, pay it the respect it deserves, and also, in the rare way, and I think the Disney way, you can't just reference it. You've got to do something new with it.
And I think while we're on that, I think the environments themselves and the way you've recreated the ride's amazing, but actually the characterization of Captain Jack Sparrow, of Davy Jones, the writing is phenomenal. Like there's a moment, I can't remember which tale it is, but Jack's taking taking a very humorous look at the map.
Yes.
And it's just, you're just like, this is exactly how these two worlds and these characters would interplay. And it's just delightful to enjoy as a Sea of Thieves player and as a person who's watched the films. So it's we were so strong in all those areas with recreating the environments, with making sure it sounded right. But the characters themselves, it was so honest to what everyone had already experienced of those franchises before. It just worked.
You had that experience.
I knew you were going to say that bit about the map, by the way, because that was the same for me when I first watched the playthrough.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we did say last time as well on the podcast that we were going to talk about some lore, and when we have been, obviously there was a massive lore dump when we did this a Pirate's Life update. But are we going to continue to see lore? We've started some sort of momentum here, and I know there was a kind of drier spell between the kind of end of last year and a Pirate's Life coming along. Can players expect more lore moving forward?
Always. And I think the quiet spell that we regrettably went through last year is a result of, all hands on deck. We're all kind of building a pirate's life and everything we've just talked about. But I think when it comes to lore in Sea of Thieves, community asking about what does this mean for Flameheart and Flameheart's story, and like Sea of Thieves is a very big place. There's all these stories that we are telling actively and we still will tell. I think the thing to kind of call out with the lore is you approach it in phases. The broader themes at play and the kind of broad strokes of the elements we want to bring in and why and what the contradictions are going to be and how things are going to contrast. That's, I would say, you can hold me to this, I would say that like the lore for the next several years is kind of broadly in mind. We kind of know where we want to take this story. And I think things in super short term are obviously known in a much more granular level of detail. And it gets a little bit more hazy mid to long, but there's that confidence that it'll all hang together because it's all coming from a kind of broader theme. And part of the reason why Pirate's Life worked is because we were tapping into those same themes. And it all, it's not really a tease because what I'm about to say is so vague, but really the kind of, there's a lot of elements in Sea of Thieves, whether it's Stitcher Jim and Wanda and Flameheart, the characters that have crossed into our world from Pirates of the Caribbean. There's the existing characters of Pirate Lord. And what a lot of our players all appreciate is that they stand for something. They all stand for something. And they've all got something about the Sea of Thieves that resonates with them. So Sea of Thieves is this special place, right, where you can become who you were meant to be. So really the themes that play behind it all are, and players will recognise this with the Siren Queen and Davy Jones and even Duke, which is, can you be in the Sea of Thieves? Can you call the Sea of Thieves your home and be the person you were before? Or do you need to transform in some way? To truly call it home, do you need to become cursed? Do you need to transform from the person you were before? Or can you stay true to who you are and what you stand for? So even saying that, you can see where different characters align on that kind of spectrum, where the Pirate Lord is that pure, it's all about the crew loyalty. We can be who we were and even better. We can keep, in good faith, all the things that make us who we are. Or, where did the ancients go? What is the origin story for the Sea of Thieves? It's this fundamental question of, how do you make the Sea of Thieves home? Do you need to give in to your baser instincts, or do you stay true to being a pirate and being a good person? So that's, I know it's incredibly vague, but that's kind of the thing we will continue to explore from the different perspectives of these characters, and it'll be very exciting.
Sweet. And moving on from that and looking kind of past a Pirate's Life, what happens now that we've been freed up? We've been under this kind of layer of secrecy for the past year on a Pirate's Life, but that was a good chunk of the team, right? That were working on that. So moving forward, what can we expect there?
Yeah, so if we look at the year ahead, obviously we've got our seasons planned out through to through to kind of season 6 in kind of the first quarter of next year. We've got a session later this week around season 7. So we've got a good idea of what the next year looks like in the terms of the content that's coming and how we want to kind of grow Sea of Thieves. Some very exciting stuff coming up there that I won't tease too much. But I think, and this is where my COVID fog just kind of goes blank in my mind. But
if you're going to leak anything, this is the time to do it.
Yeah.
Best
I won't remember it. But you're definitely going to see in the short term, there's some quality of life kind of fixes and stuff coming out. So like there's quite a lot of bug fixes of things, you know, we've definitely seen over the last year as there's been this big focus on a pirate's life. We haven't been able to prioritize some of the bug fixes that we would want and some of the just improvements just to the overall kind of core Sea of Thieves experience. You'll start to see some of that come out, I think, in like our August kind of update and in kind of season 4 and stuff. So there's definitely going to be a bit of a raising up of just the overall kind of quality level, I guess, of the game experience. But you know, as we look to the year ahead, I think definitely how we kind of level up events, right, is a big thing for us. Something that I know Mike can speak to in terms of kind of the passion that we want. We want events to be really kind of moments that, you know, you're not kind of just like turning up for the rewards or turning for that stuff. We really want them to be like super cool moments that make the most of our shared world, make the most of kind of the magic of the Sea of Thieves sandbox. That's definitely a goal for us for the kind of year ahead. We're going to be making some improvements as well for kind of new and returning players, and really kind of like as Sea of Thieves has become this, there's so much stuff in Sea of Thieves now, but you know, if as a new player returning and figuring out what to do, what to engage with, where to find things, and just like, you know, we can look at our data, we can look at sentiment, we know that that's a real opportunity for us. That like we do great at bringing people back to our game, bringing new people in, but quite a few people do just bounce off it, right? Because of like, what do I do? Where do I go? What's like that first experience? Those first couple of experiences, like they're so key. And they're so also like to kind of making people fall in love with Sea of Thieves. You could have the best experience like when you first come and play Sea of Thieves, like, and or you could have an experience that isn't as good. And so kind of us having a bit more control over that, a bit more understanding how we kind of make the people that come to the game fall in love with it and become kind of part of that Sea of Thieves community is a real key thing for us too. But also just continuing to expand upon the sandbox, continuing to kind of go back to making the most of kind of this amazing world that we have. And then there's future kind of Disney stuff that we can go do, like we have the option to, and we have the kind of, you know, we have some thoughts and conversations of things we could do in that front. But we won't confirm or deny any of that stuff at the moment. But yeah, so we're actually planning tomorrow. So this will have happened by the time people listen to the podcast, but we're having our first kind of strategic session as a leadership group about the next few years of kind of, like Mike says, he's got a pretty good idea, I think, creatively of a lot of things we want to go do around the stories we want to tell and how we want to involve kind of what players can do, but kind of really framing that properly and being able to get to a place where we can take the kind of the wider team through it and stuff is where our heads are at. And it's a really nice moment to do it, I think, after a pirate's life, right? Because this is a really incredible moment in the Sea of Thieves journey, but I also think it shows us that, or reinforces, I think, that Sea of Thieves has so much more to give, so much more to do, and I think there's just so many more opportunities to tell the stories we can tell, the features we can bring in, how we can expand upon that sandbox. Like, I think we're nowhere near reaching the kind of the pinnacle of what Sea of Thieves can be. Like, it's still only getting started in a lot of ways, even though Christina, like you said earlier, it's been over 3 years, right? That we've been live, you know, considering we spent 4 years prior to launch working on Sea of Thieves and we've nearly been 4 years live, is just like that'll be an incredible moment when we've been live longer than the game was kind of in development prior to launch.
Yeah.
But
I don't think any of us will ever, so I was saying, I don't think any of us will ever look back in years to come and go, that was the moment Sea of Thieves was done or we reached the pinnacle. It's just not going to happen. I don't think there's never been a session where we're planning features where there's not a ridiculous amount of things that there's just not enough human hours in the world to go do. It really is what's the right order to bring things in. And I think especially after a pirate's life where it tales are a certain type of content where it engages every discipline of the team, because they are, I've said this before, they are like symphonies. You bring together the music, the visual effects, the storytelling, the writing. It's all got to come together in the right way. It's amazing to work on, very intense, and occupies so much of the team. But I think with Joe mentioning kind of the season 7 planning session, which is getting quite far out now, I think with with where that's likely to go in terms of what that feature will be, what's really refreshing is you look across the type of content. We could go developing Sea of Thieves, like new places to have experiences, more tools, not rules, kind of mechanics that enrich the sandbox, systems that get you to play in different ways. There's kind of an example of each of those kind of planned in kind of near to mid-term. There's the full kind of spectrum of what the Sea of Thieves experiences has been. There's kind of an example across the seasons of each of those. So yeah, more than ever, I think A Pirate's Life has just been like a kind of health check on how big this game can be and how far we can reach. And again, more inspired than ever to keep going. And it's been amazing after A Pirate's Life to just start planning out future seasons and just seeing, God, it just feels like we're getting started, which is crazy after all these years.
Yeah, and part of that planning process actually around seasons, even as we were leading into A Pirate's Life, it became apparent to us that we needed to kind of grow to a place where we have like more teams working on the seasons, plus the kind of the live service side of things with events and with that kind of new player, returning player stuff I was talking about. So we're kind of continuing to grow. So again, going into this year, the scale of people we're having working on Sea of Thieves is bigger than even like the last year, which was bigger than the year before. So in kind of, we're growing. So we can just keep, like we can give the time to go do crazy cool things for new seasons, right? Like more teams you have, the longer lead time they can have leading into a season and stuff. And so we're very much in that kind of transition period now, growing as we go. But like you say, the plans across each of the coming seasons all kind of hit on different areas, don't they? Of like the what's awesome about Sea of Thieves and the things we can do. So a very exciting year ahead in a different way to what was exciting about the last year, right? With the Pirate's Life being the big headline thing, it's now about paying off different ways to kind of grow that sandbox and stuff. So.
John's had enough. He's run off.
Yeah.
But the talking about seasons, George, what season are you on?
I'm doing a little bit of season 5 and a little bit of season 6 at the moment. So I get to see, I've seen, like in the last couple of weeks, I've seen some really, really exciting stuff. And I was thinking while you were talking there, like everything you said is spot on. But like from on individual game team levels, like shipping something like A Pirate's Life is this like monumental achievement, and you learn so much and you like all pull together as a team. And like the nerd inside of me is like, yeah, we just beat a massive boss in D&D, right? Like we've just prepped for it, we've got ready, we've used all our potions, all our magic, and we've absolutely smashed this boss. And now the dungeon master is telling us we've leveled up, and now because of everything that we've done on A Pirate's Life, everyone on the team is now better than they were a year ago. Like everyone on the team has some cool new abilities or some cool new weapons that we can go and make amazing games with. And the way the next few seasons are setting up, as Mike and Joe have alluded to, is like every one of those cool new abilities and cool new weapons that we've learned over the development of A Pirate's Life, like we're going to have a way to test it and show it off. And there are so many like amazing little moments that are being built behind the scenes now because the team has been energized by A Pirate's Life, because we've learned so much from A Pirate's Life, and now we've got the chance to go not back to the main Sea of Thieves world because we never left it, but like we can go back to Sea of Thieves and be like, we've got some awesome ideas. So it's really exciting to see like individuals and groups on teams like start to build those things.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. I don't think any of us could have said that better, George. That's why you got promoted. Everything's a story, and storytell with everything. That's beautiful.
And you actually answered my next question, which is amazing. And you answered it so eloquently that I don't think anyone else needs to answer it. So probably passing on to yourself, Christina. I know you've got a question that's come from the community.
Well, I noted that Joe very much headed me off at the pass there by alluding to what we can't talk about with forthcoming Disney content. But one thing we've seen across the community is they just want to know, is more of this coming, and in what sort of capacity? Is it going to be more cool Pirate Emporium stuff? Is it going to be more Tales? Is it going to be something different?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about what's next?
In the short term, we have some cool Pirate Emporium stuff coming, which may or may not have been revealed by the time we do this. Probably not. But yeah, there is some cool new stuff coming. Kind of
Insiders,
that will have been going into Insiders already and stuff. So, but yeah, we've got thoughts, we've got plans beyond that, for sure. So like I say, the relationship with Disney is fantastic. And has been since the start. I loved seeing some of their interviews that they were doing as well around the kind of same time of A Pirate's Life being revealed, talking about what they want to do partnership wise and with other teams, with other kind of IPs and things. And so, but it was really cool to see how they talked about the relationship with us, and also that they saw it similarly to how we did, right? Because we obviously only ever really see our perspective and what they present to us, but they talk very well around that the initial meetings we had, and then how we've worked together. It's been amazing, honestly, because this is the first time for us as a team we've kind of worked with someone like Disney, another kind of license holder, and bring something into our world in game, and that brings with it some complications, like it does, like in terms of approvals, in terms of kind of getting other feedback on stuff that so far we've been completely in control of everything that we've done and had no kind of external kind of feedback or direction. It's been like Sea of Thieves is brand new IP, Rare's made. We've come up with all the ideas. We've just gone and built it. And this is the first time that we've had to kind of listen to that external voice. But I think we've got such a great understanding, and I look across the team of everyone that's worked on this, the understanding of the IPs we're using. So that process has been super smooth. But Disney have really helped us as well, and just always given that qualitative feedback, right? In terms of like really trying to go, how do we make it as faithful and as kind of awesome to everyone that's a fan of these IPs? So the relationship is great. From a boring business side, we have a really good kind of, we have a contract that gives us options in the future and stuff around things. So yeah, lots of options open to us. We just want to go and figure out kind of when and how and stuff. There's just there's stories and fun stuff that we could do and that we could tell, and we've got a good idea of those. But we cannot confirm anything at the moment. But just know that this release has gone really well and the relationship's really good. So lots of excitement about the future. But if anything we do has to fit into our world, has to be the way that this has been brought in, the authenticity, the kind of everything that Mike and everyone's talked about. Like, it just has to be something that takes our world forward, takes our stories forward, and is done in exactly the same way. So.
Yeah, and it's impossible.
Sorry, on you go, Mike. No, on you go.
I'll say it's impossible when trying to tie the worlds together so deeply in a meaningful way, it's impossible not to work on that at a conception stage and not consider how the pieces then get picked up in the future and how different story threads could grow. So there's lots of potential there. There's lots of clues that where it could potentially go, and there's lots of different avenues that our fans will probably pick up on. But I think it goes back to exactly what Joe said, which is it's got to be the right story. You can't just do it because it sounds cool on paper. It's got to make sense long term. Once we're over that honeymoon period and the newness has worn off, it has to make sense. And what if we were to do something in the future? I think we'd have to really consider it long and hard and do it with that same level of attention to detail, love and passion that we poured into it. Yeah, so it's exciting. Who knows where we'll go in the future?
And we've got to learn from this one as well, right? Just from the development of it, right? It's been a big, huge undertaking, right? Like the Dungeons & Dragons boss, right? But we had to plan ahead for that, right? Make sure everyone was equipped with the right weapons and tools, and that we planned it ahead. But it meant that not all of our troops were focused on the kind of the live service side, etc. But I think we have to learn from it, right? Of like if we want to continue to grow and do just how we manage Sea of Thieves moving forward. How do we go do something like this again? How would we do it? What would we learn from this? And it's definitely that last few months leading up to the launch of this was like a really busy time across the team and the studio, right? And I think we have to learn from that again. That I don't think we quite got that balance right. And so how do we go and continually kind of manage our team and our studio and our health and everything, and just kind of get that better next time and stuff. So there's loads you have to factor into it, right? From the creative to the how you make it and how you do it, and also how we would go talk about it. How would we do the same thing again of this surprise and short release? I don't know if we would, because it's not the same thing, and so we'd have to go figure that part out too. So loads to consider, but.
So what you're trying to say, Joe, is if we had our time again, we wouldn't send everyone through the mines of Moria. We'd send some of the teams through the mines, and some would also take the mountain pass.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And we try not to lose Gandalf in the dark.
That's right.
That's what I read from what you said.
Yeah. definitely, yeah.
And John, were you going to say something before I close this out?
It was really inconsequential what I was going to say. I was
to
just
finish on then.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to be flippant and say there's some excellent emotes coming soon as well. But I only say that because it's both John and I that usually do the animation for the emotes. So there you go. Some good emotes coming soon.
You're going to give us a preview. Go on.
Oh yeah, go on.
You're on camera right now, John. Disappointing.
We can't leave this podcast without you talking about the new emotes in the trailer voice.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So imagine it's
that's
the
a good one.
trailer for the emotes. Where would you say it?
Well, the emotes that came to my head were the ones that both John and I have shared with. This was a while ago, but shared with the gaming group that we have that play Warzone. Don't know if you remember seeing them, Joe. It was like John was doing they're all quite recognizable dances. Except the one I did had a bit of a Sea of Thieves spin on it.
So if I get it in my voice, I could put it on here.
Oh, good lord.
I remember pulling my back doing one of them, so I hope it works out all right.
We should get that in the pulling your back emote.
Yeah, it's definitely. I was not built to dance. Like I was not built.
Quite long limbs, don't you?
I've got long limbs. I'm like a daddy long legs. Like when I'm trying to dance, just like flailing everywhere. Which is like why all the emotes that I do have a certain lanky camp
you can tell it's you.
Yeah.
Like, you can
The
tell
Bill's
it's
rap
you.
dance. The Bill's rap dance is you. Amazing. One of my
That's
favorites.
you doing an impression of like an old man in a pub.
Yeah.
It's
But
also
the
my
facial expressions make it. Like, if you go back to the original footage, he's completely in character.
which is also just my standard dance for going out on a Saturday night, the old man in the pub. Yeah, so it doesn't get any more trendy than that. But yeah, thank you to everybody for watching. It's been good to get like a more like personal story from the I keep going to call it by its codename, but a pirate's life side. So it's been good chatting through this, and we will be taking kind of like looking at your questions on social. So if you do have any questions for the next one, although we don't have any topics, you can just shoot random topics at us and we'll see what's there as well. We'll kind of gauge what topics are coming up the hottest, right, Christina? You can do that, right?
Exactly. So we see all. And then if there are certain keywords that start occurring, we'll link them up the priority list. So basically, the more you talk about something, the more you want to know. We'll endeavour to bring some insight in the next podcast.
So get your keywords in there, everybody. Get your keywords into social. So yeah, remember, if you haven't subscribed already to either the podcast apps that you're getting this from and following on there, or YouTube, please do so, because remember, we're on both. So if you're not watching us here, you can watch on YouTube. And if you are just listening to us when you're dancing, out dancing, I don't know why you would listen to this and not the music you're dancing to, but if you're into that and that is your thing, then please do it. And then remember, we will be here next time in an indiscernible amount of time.
Before we go, John, just so there's an incentive for somebody to come and watch the video version of this, I do have the video of you dancing here.
Oh.
Yes.
Come on.
Go.
Let's try and line this
Why is it me?
up.
I'm posting yours on Twitter.
No.
There's so much more of you, John.
Let's see how close we can get this. Right, here we go.
I'm wearing.
Oh, look at him go. There we go. That'll do.
Amazing.
So look out for me posting on Twitter straight after this, John's version of his dance as well. Something to look forward to. Head straight over to our social channels, and I'm sure to tag Sea of Thieves in there. But thank you very much for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much for watching. Remember, if you liked what you saw, then there's a wealth of content already on our channel and there's lots more to come, so subscribe and click that little ship's bell for all those notifications. Cheers.